session, we have talked about Docker. What is Docker? Why Docker is so important? We will talk about how to install this Docker. Okay, so we will see that how the Docker is important in our infrastructure point of view. Okay, so let us now from the last lecture you will be get familiar with the Docker. Now you understand why Docker is required. So yesterday we have seen that how to install the Docker, but that was very quick. Today we will see in the detail how to install it on the Ubuntu system, how to install it on the CentOS operating system, and then we will verify that whether it is properly installed or not. So let us first understand with the yesterday's session that why Docker is important. So I have created some containers yesterday. I downloaded the images. What does it mean? So Docker containers are basically encapsulating everything an application needs to run. They allow the application to be shuttled easily between the environments. So any host with the Docker runtime installed, be it a developer's laptop or public cloud instance, can run the Docker containers. Yesterday we have done a comparison between the virtual machine and the we have done a comparison with the Docker containers. We have seen the means if we have the virtual machine, then the guest operating system is loaded fully. Okay, so say an example, if you are having CentOS system or if you are having Red Hat system or Windows system, if you start as a virtual machine, the entire image is loaded. It takes time. Whereas in the case of Docker, it is mounted. So that we have discussed in the previous lecture. Also, why we need to use Docker? Why we need to use the Docker container? What are the advantages of the Docker? So these question comes into our mind. So whenever we are talking about the Docker containers, so these ensures the consistency across the multiple development and release cycles. It is now the standard way of your infrastructure environment. One of the biggest advantage of the Docker-based architecture is actually the standardization. So Docker provides the repeatable development, build, test, production environment. So that is why we are using Docker. I hope it is clear to everyone that what is the use of the Docker. Now let us move ahead and let's talk about OdinSchool. So OdinSchool is a technology upskilling platform. We help you to continuously acquire new skills. So stay skilled, stay ahead. And if you have not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe it. And myself is Raman. I am a DevOps specialist with over 16 years of experience. I'm expertise in DevOps tools like Git, Docker, Kubernetes, Jenkins, so on. I'm also familiar with the programming languages like Python, Java, .NET, JavaScript, web-based, HTML, because I started my career as a developer. So I'm familiar with these languages. I'm also good in the cloud computing like AWS and Azure. So what we are going to discuss today? We are going to discuss about the prerequisite of Docker installation. We are also going to discuss that how to install Docker on Ubuntu system. We will see how to install Docker on CentOS system. Even though you can install the Docker on other platforms as well, you can install it on Windows. If time permits, I will show you that demo. And also you can use you can install it on other operating system like Mac OS. So, but main agenda of today is to install the Docker on Ubuntu and CentOS system. Okay, so these are the some operating system where you can install the Docker. You can install it on Linux, Windows, Mac, on Vagrant machines, right? So now let me quickly go to the website from where we can see the installation steps. So what you need to do, you just need to write over here that uh, install Docker on CentOS 7. Okay, so this is under the documentation of the Docker. So just click on it. Install Docker engine on CentOS system. All right, so here there are some prerequisites. So before talking to the prerequisite, let me show you here. This is my CentOS machine. So I'm connected with the CentOS system. So I have one EC2 instance in AWS, which is CentOS and CentOS 7. And I'm connected with the MOBA Extreme. So MOBA Extreme is my SSH client. So let me log in with the root user. So for that, sudo su. Now next, I need to update the host name. That activity we have done in the previous session as well. So how to change this host name? So you can change the host name by running a command host name, and if I say docker 01, okay, and now I will say if you want to permanently change it, you can go to etc hostname, and here I will change the hostname to docker 01. Let me save this and run a command bash. Now you can see this particular host name get changed. Now this is hash, it means I am logged in with the root user. Before that, I was logged in with the CentOS user. Okay, so far so good. Now, next, what I want to, I want to update the yum repository. Okay, so that it should be up to the mark. So the things which we are going to install with respect to Docker, so we can install without any problem. It should be, my yum repository should be up to the date. So I'm running a command yum update -y. Okay, so this will update your yum repository. It takes some time, so that is why I choose this activity before talking about the installation of on the CentOS machine. So let it get installed or update the yum repository. Let's come back to our uh, CentOS system. So I'm CentOS installation of Docker. So here on this page you can see install Docker engine on CentOS. To get started with the Docker engine on CentOS, make sure you meet the prerequisites. Okay, so what is the prerequisites? So when you are installing the when you are installing the Docker, then on CentOS machine, then you need to fulfill this OS requirement. So for example, to install the Docker engine, you need to maintain versions of CentOS 7. Okay. Archived versions are not supported or tested. So you should have CentOS 7. The CentOS extra repository must be enabled, which is enabled in our case. The repository is enabled by default, but if you have disabled it, just re-enabled it. And if you want that, how to re-enable it, you can click on this link. The overlay 2 storage driver is recommended. We will talk about this. Overlay 2 is the storage driver which is used by the Docker. Okay. Now, in our case, it is a fresh machine. Okay, but it may be possible that you have installed older version of Docker and you want to install a new version. So in that case, how to uninstall the older versions? Older version of the Docker were called Docker or Docker engine. If these are installed, uninstall them along with the associated dependency. So we need to run this command. So I'm not going to run this command as of now. The reason is because this is not installed on my system. So here sudo yum remove docker, docker client latest, docker common, docker latest. If any one of these is exist on your system, then you need to remove it. So it's a yum remove command. It's okay if yum reports that none of these packages are installed. Okay. The contents of where lib docker. So this is the directory which is a default directory. When you install the Docker, so it stores its objects under this directory, which is under where, under root we have where, under where we have lib, under lib we are having Docker, and we will see after the installation whether this directory get created or not. Okay, so the contents of where lib Docker, including, so it includes images, containers, volumes, networks, are preserved. The engine package is now called Docker Community Editions. So that is free edition, right? So Docker CE. So we need to, once we install this, so it will be the Docker CE, which is a open source. Okay, Docker is open source. There is enterprise version also, but we are talking about the Docker open source. Now, installation method. So you can install the Docker engine in a different ways depending upon your needs. Most of the users set up the Docker repository and install them for ease installation and upgrade tasks. So if you see this, we are basically going to use this method only. That will be the easiest way or the quickest way to install Docker. So, uh, so this is one of the way. The other way is that some of the user download the RPM package. So you can download the RPM package and install manually and manage the upgrades completely manually. So this is again, it is up to you. Means if you want to go with the setup with the Docker's repository, you can uh, you can use first method, and if you want to do everything manually, then you can download the RPM package and install it. In testing and development environments, some users choose to automate convenience script. Okay, so third way is that you can write a script, use that script, give that script to the other team members, those who wants to install that Docker the same way as you have installed. Then you can go with the this third method. So these are the three ways by which you can install the Docker. Okay. So now we are going to discuss this way where we are going to use the set up the Docker repository. Okay. Before you install Docker engine, for the first time on a new host machine that is perfectly suitable for us because we are going to install it on a new machine, you need to set up the Docker repository. Afterward, you can install and update Docker from the repository. So how to set up this? So first thing that we need to see whether yum utils are available or not. This is s- this is basically a package which is required to install or install your uh, repository. So install yum util package which provides the yum config manager. So here you can see we are going to use the yum config manager, and this is basically because of this yum util package. So we need to install this yum util package first and set up the stable repository. So let us go back to our CentOS machine. Now the updates is done, right? So now if I first run this command, okay, so sudo install yum utils. So what yum utils give? It gives you the configuration manager, and the configuration manager is basically we are going to use for the installation of the Docker through the Docker's repository. Okay, so this is already installed on my system. In case it is not installed on your system, then your output will be different. It is installing, it may ask, okay, it will not ask because I'm using -y. So when you are using -y, wherever there is yes or no option, except yes. All right, so now here, if I go to the CentOS system, I need to run a command. So let us follow the next command. Sudo yum configuration manager add repository. So this command will add the repository, and this is the URL where the repository is available. So I need to add this repository. So I'm saying yum config manager add repository, and this is the repository name. So let us run this command. You can run in one shot, means copy and paste, but I would prefer line by line. There is no harm if you copy paste directly, but sometimes if you are not copying properly, so that gives the error. So that's why this is only 3 lines of code. I'm just copying it and pasting it onto my machine. Okay, so sudo yum config manager add repository, and this is the repository name. Enter. Okay, so the repository is added. Good. Now, there are some optional things which is not required. So, optional thing is enable the nightly or test repository. So, if you want to enable it, it's up to you, but without that also it will work perfectly. These repositories are included in the docker.repo file. As we have mentioned this docker.repo file, so these are included in that, but are disabled by default. You can enable them along the side of the stable repository. The following command is to enable the nightly repository. So these repository which we are talking about, nightly or the test repository, these are the part of this repo, but these are disabled. So if you want to enable it, you can run this command. And to enable the test channel, you need to run this command. So we are not going to do that as of now. not required. So I'm skipping this step. Okay, but if you want to enable this, uh, you can run these commands. Okay, now let us install the Docker engine. Install the latest version of the Docker engine and containerd. So containerd is the part of Docker engine latest version. Or go to the next step to install the specific version. So I'm going to run this command, which is yum install docker ce, docker c cli, and containerd.io. We will talk about what is containerd and how, not today's lecture, maybe in some other lecture, but these are the components which is required to install the Docker engine. So I'm going to run this. If prompted to accept the GPG key, so if there any GPG key is required, verify with the fingerprint matches. So accept it. Okay. So this is basically going to install the latest version of the Docker. But in case to install the specific version of the Docker engine, list the available versions in the repo and select. So these are the available versions. So you can install these. Okay. So let us run this command to install the Docker engine. Let me copy this and run it here. Okay, so we have not used the -y option. That is why it is asking. Okay, is it okay? Yes. So just accept whatever the things. So fingerprints and the as mentioned in the documentation, right? It will ask for the fingerprints GPG key. So we accepted it. All right. Now Docker is installed. Yesterday we have discussed that Docker daemon. So Docker daemon is the service when you install the Docker. So let us see whether that service is installed or not. So I'll say systemctl and status Docker. So service is installed, but it is not in the started mode. So service is installed, but it is not in the started mode. So how to start? Systemctl start Docker. So if it returns nothing, it means the service is started. Let us verify it. Systemctl and status Docker. Okay, so now you can see the Docker service is active and running. If you want to enable this service, you can do that. It's a service only, right? So systemctl enable enable Docker. Okay, so the service is now enabled. So if you restart your system, this will be in the running state. Okay, now the Docker is installed. How can I verify it? What is the version of the Docker? And as we discussed that if there is a previous version get installed, then it will have a where docker lib docker directory. So these are certain steps. Okay, so basically what I'm saying here, so I'm saying that if we have a Docker installed, So okay, so you're now this command says Docker installed. Now to verify that Docker is installed or not, first thing you will check that which version of the Docker is installed. Okay, so this is the first thing. Second thing, that mm, Docker has proper directory structure or not. Here in the version, I also want to check that Docker is server component and the uh, client component is properly installed or not. Okay, so that also I want to check it out. In the directory, I want to check that where lib uh, Docker. Okay, so this directory exists or not. We will see that. And also, we will run certain commands. Okay, so one of them is the Docker info. We will try to run the commands which we have already discussed. Means Docker images command, or we will see whether we are able to create the container by Docker run command. Okay, so all these things we are going to check it out, whether all these things are available on my machine or I'm able to run the commands. It means my installation is perfect. There is no problem. Even though when you have installed the Docker, it does not throw any error. Okay, so it didn't throw any error. So it means everything looks fine, but it's a verification step. So let us see that how to verify. So first command which I am running is docker hyphen hyphen version. So here you can see Docker version 19.0.3.12. This is the version which get installed on my system. Okay, so if someone asks which version of Docker you are using, you have to run this command. You can run this command as well, Docker version. So it tells you what is the server configuration, what is the client configuration. So all these Docker, by the way, it is developed in the Go programming language, so that's why it is showing the Go version. What is the git commit? So this is the git commit. So when you run this Docker version command, it is saying build this. So this is basically git commit. So git, it's a repository, right? Central repository. So it's a git version, and this is built on this date, operating system Linux. Okay, it's not experimental, so it's a production grade. All right, so here now you can see this is the client version definition or the properties, and these are the server definition or the properties. So there are some in the server side, there are some components like containerd, runc, docker init, so which we are going to discuss in detail in some other lecture, not today's lecture. But these are the versions get installed. So by seeing this output, you will be confirmed by saying that okay, everything looks fine to me. Okay, so it means Docker is properly installed. Well, now second thing is that Docker info command. Okay, so this gives you the information what is happening on your machine. So currently there is no container, no running container, no paused, no stopped containers. Server version is this, storage driver, which we are going to discuss in detail. So that is overlay 2. we are not going to discuss today. Today's lecture is more on the installation part, but in some other session we are going to discuss about that. And other information also you can see Docker Swarm related information also you will see here. Docker Swarm inactive. So Docker Swarm is basically an orchestration tool. So this orchestration tool is, I have not enabled it. So that is why it is saying Docker Swarm inactive. Okay, so this is the another verification check, which we have verified. So it indicates that Docker is installed properly. So if I say slash var lib, okay, so here you can see there is a directory which is called Docker. So this is our next verification step. So if I say ls slash var slash, or if I say ls minus l, that sounds good to me. Var lib slash docker, and here you can see that uh, it gives us the um, it gives us the some set of directories. Okay, so if you remember that when we were talking about this and it was saying on the beginning the contents of var lib docker including images, container, volumes. So all that Docker related information or most of the Docker related information which you have installed on your system, it resides by default under this directory. So do not make any changes into this directory without any knowledge. We do changes like sometimes if you want to take a backup, you can take a backup and you want to restore, you can restore your Docker Swarm, other things. So here you can see all these are the directories. So say an example, image, containers, so container related information, and image related information, network related, overlay to plugins, swarm, volumes, etc. So we have verified that this directory exists and it is having these folders. So it means we are good that uh, we, we are good that all the verification things which we have noted down, all these are correct. Means these are perfectly look means this directory is exists. This directory exists, and Docker version, Docker info, these things are fine. Now let us do one more thing. If I say Docker images, I'm just checking commands are running perfectly or not. So if I say Docker images, it runs perfectly. There is no problem. If I say Docker pull Ubuntu, and it is going to download the Ubuntu image from where? Pause the video, tell me where? From Docker Hub. That's right. Okay, so it is getting downloaded from the Docker Hub. So if I run a command docker images, and you can see there is a Docker image get downloaded. It means my command is running perfectly all right. There is no problem. So Docker is installed properly so far. So guys, please like and share and subscribe. Okay. So here you can see Ubuntu latest. This is the image ID 2 weeks ago, and this is the size. And if I want to run a container, if I say docker run -it -t, and if I want to run the Ubuntu container, Ubuntu, yes, with the Ubuntu image. So this is the container ID. And if I say docker execute -id and this container and bash, so I'm inside this container. So far, so good. No problem we are getting. And if I say make directory test, if I say ls, test directory get created. So this indicates that everything is fine so far on my everything is fine on my system. Docker looks like installed properly. Okay. Now, okay, so why it is coming here. Okay, so it means the Docker get installed properly. So this was the installation on CentOS machine. Now let us see how to install Docker on Ubuntu machine. For Ubuntu machine also you can go to the Docker official website. Okay, and if you want to follow the further steps, so we have done up till here, start the Docker run hello world. So if I run this command, right? So hello world is basically an image. So we can try this also as the documentation says. So Docker run hello world. So hello world is an image on the Docker hub. So if I run this command, so it is downloading that image and it runs successfully. There is no problem. So hello from the Docker. This message shows that installation appears to be working correctly. Okay, so it means everything looks fine. So let us see, is there any other verification step? No, nothing. Okay, so it is uh, it is basically good. So now we have confirmed that uh, that this installation is without any issue. Now let us install it on the Ubuntu. So same way, if you want to do it with the repository, you can do it. You can go to the Google and say install Docker on Ubuntu. And which version of Ubuntu system? You can select it. Again, it's a Docker uh, official website documentation. You can go repository. So in apt repository, basically, we are having the apt get remove command, Docker, okay, apt remove Docker, Docker engine, Docker IO, container. So these things you need to uninstall it. But as I mentioned that we are going to have a fresh machine, so we are not going to run this command. Again, we need to check this var lib docker if something exists, which indicates that you have the version installed. So you need to uninstall it properly and again verify this var lib docker folder. It should not be there. There should not be any object. Again, you are having certain methods. So one method is most of the users set up the Docker repositories and install from them for ease installation and upgrade tasks. So that is what we have done in the case of Docker on the CentOS machine. Some of the user download the DEB package. So in the CentOS, we are downloading the RPM package, but here you can download the Debian package and install manually and manage upgrades completely manually. This is useful in the situations such as installing Docker on air-gapped systems or no access to the internet. In testing and development environments, some users choose automated convenience script. So we are going to use uh, this step. Okay. So one way is that you can directly go and install these things. This is fine, means you can follow these steps, but I will show you one more easy way. So if I go back to my Ubuntu system, so this is my Ubuntu system. So if I say, okay, so my Ubuntu system is this one. Now if I say login with the root user, sudo su apt update command. So I'm using apt update command to update the apt repository. Like in the CentOS, we are having yum repository. In Debian package, we are having apt repository. So apt get update command you can use, or apt update. Okay, so now it is updating the apt repository. Okay, so it get installed. Let me change the host name. Host name as I will say docker02, and you can change into the etc host name file, and here you can say docker02. Okay, I saved it. Now if I say bash. Okay, so uh, now the host name get changed. Now how to install the Docker on the Ubuntu? Command is apt install docker.io -y. So I'm installing through the apt repository directly. Okay, so now it is installing the Docker on my Ubuntu system. So it will take little bit time. So let's wait for that. Okay, so let's wait for that. And even though if you want to follow these steps, you can follow these steps. You need to install the apt transport https ca certificate curl. Okay, and software properties common. Once it get installed, you need to uh, download the key, which is the gpg key. Okay, you need to run this command, which is the apt key fingerprints, and then you need to add the repository. Okay, so this way also you can do. Then apt update, and after that install docker cli, and containerid.io. So this way also you can do. So I have shown all the steps which is given on the Docker website for CentOS. And same way you are going to install it in the Ubuntu operating system, but I'm giving you a shortcut method. Okay, so in this shortcut method, we are basically installing very quickly by running a simple command, which is apt docker io -y. Okay, -y I have used, means if it asks for yes or no interview questions. So you just say Y. It accepts Y automatically. Okay, so it is almost done. Okay, so once it is installed, we will check the same verification process as we have done it for the CentOS machine, whether whether Docker is installed on this system or not. Okay, so now Docker is installed. So as I mentioned, same steps we are going to use. So the steps are number one, Docker version. Which Docker version is installed? Second, we will see the Docker information. Third, we will see Docker commands. Also, one more I missed it, that is var lib and the Docker directory. So we are going to see whether all these things are are basically means these commands get executed successfully and this directory exists or not. So these things we are going to see. So let us do that. So first command I am running docker hyphen hyphen version. When you run this command, so it is giving you the Docker version 19.0.3.6 and this is the git build. If you want to see the Docker server and client version, then you can say Docker and version command. Here you can see the Docker uh, client version as well as Docker client version as well as Docker server version. Okay, so it is coming in between. Okay, let me make it on the side. Okay, so here you can see Docker client version is this, Docker server version is this, which is perfectly all right. And other component of the server version get installed. Go version 1.12.7. This is also fine. This is the git commit. So everything looks fine for the Docker version point of view. Now let me see what is happening in the Docker. Docker info command. So here you can see currently 0 containers are running, 0 paused, 0 stopped, no image so far. This is the server information storage driver. Docker Swarm is inactive. Okay, so it looks like that everything is fine so far. There is no problem. Let me check ls slash var slash lib directory. There should be a Docker directory here, and you can see there is a Docker directory. If I say ls minus l var and lib slash docker, and you can see that there are the directories uh, similar like containers, images, network. And if you want to go inside this directory, you can go. It means you can say ls minus l and slash var slash lib slash docker. If you want to see the information about the volumes, you can say docker slash volumes. Okay, so it is having some metadata.db file. Same way if you go to the containers, so we don't have any containers so far. So it is saying total 0. Okay, so this is the, the the directory which have the information related to your Docker environment. Okay, so this indicates that my Docker is is fine. Okay, there is no problem. We can verify the commands. If I say Docker images, so it means there is no image, and that was expected because we did not download any image so far. So if I say Docker pull any image, Ubuntu. Okay. One more thing that you find a difference between the CentOS and Ubuntu. Here I did not start the Docker explicitly. So if you say systemctl and status Docker, so here it gets started automatically. So if it does not start, so if I stop it, then you cannot run these commands. So if I say docker stop, systemctl stop docker. Okay, now if I say docker images command, docker images, so you can see it cannot connect to the docker because docker daemon is not running. So here when you install it on the Ubuntu operating system, you need not to worry about that. It automatically gets started, means I'm talking about 18.04 version onwards, but you need to verify it. Okay, if your commands are not running, don't think that your Docker is not installed properly. It is installed properly, but the service is not started. So if I say system ctl status docker. Okay, so status docker. Okay, so it is disabled and it is inactive at this moment because I stopped it. Now, if you want to start it, you need to say start. Okay, now if I say docker status, systemctl status docker, so you can see it is active and running. Now if I run a command now docker images, it should run. Now it is not giving the error because my service, my daemon service is up and running. So let us download an image, docker pull, say CentOS version 7. Okay, so we will download a version 7. Okay, so this get downloaded right on my system. Now to verify this, if I say docker images, so you can see that CentOS 7 is downloaded. Now if you want to check whether you can create the container or not, you can say docker run -it CentOS and we will run it in a background -t. Okay, so here you see the difference. Unable to find this latest because I did not mention the tag CentOS 7. So that is why it is expecting CentOS latest version. So if you run this command docker images, now you can see there is a new image get downloaded which is CentOS latest. Okay, so now if I say docker execute -it and this is the container ID and bash. Okay, so I'm inside the container now. So if I say make directory, say test1, directory get created. If I say ls minus l. So here you can see test1 directory get created. Okay, so this confirms that installation on Ubuntu is successful. So, okay, so we are done with this. So let us recap and see we what we have done. We have discussed about the prerequisites uh, of the Docker. We have seen how to install the Docker on Ubuntu. We have seen how to install the Docker on CentOS. So if you have any question, any doubt, you can write it on the comments. Thank you very much, but do not forget to like or subscribe our channel. I hope this will be more informative for you. You have learned that how to install the Docker on these two operating systems. Thank you very much for watching and see you